Here tonight. Thank you, Kelly, for getting all this information out to us. I'll call the meeting to order. Kelly, do we need to do a roll? If
Actually,
we don't,
yeah, I can go through it. I can go through, scroll through the pictures and stuff.
I think that's a good idea. Please go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I've been doing that. It's more about who doesn't join. And Spencer will be joining us late. So he'll be here, but not at the very beginning.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if we have a quorum yet. It looks like maybe you and Chris and Angie and Kermit and Katie. So we do.
Good. So are you going to do a roll or no? It looks like I'm just curious to know who from the committee is on and who is not.
Oh, okay.
Besides Kermit, or being besides Spencer showing up.
Okay, Chris Schultz-Buckner's here, and Carol and Andy Phelps, and Angie Carey, Daphne Wu, Lisa Hanairo, Kermit Hovey, Allison Madison from Saltwise MMSD, and Katie Nelson.
Okay, great. And did you hear anything from either Dick or Andy?
I did not.
Okay, all right, great. Well, thank you for calling the roll, and thank you members for being here today. Let's talk about the minutes.
Are we doing public comments?
Well, according to the
first?
agenda, the approval of the minutes comes first.
Okay, no problem. Just,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Multitasking.
And actually, technically, and we can talk about this later during the ground rules discussion, I went and consulted Robert's Rules of Order, and it doesn't seem that we actually need a motion and a second to approve the minutes as long as there are no corrections. But we'll go ahead and do that because that seems to be what this committee and the other committees do. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 19, 2020? I think Chris just made a motion.
I tried to.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? No one seconding? Okay, Kermit seconds. Let's discuss. Are there any need for corrections? Hearing none. Not reading any lips to indicate that muted people have corrections. We'll put it to a vote. Those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes from October 19th of 2020 signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Kermit, was that a nay?
Nope, that was
It was a late
delayed aye. Sorry with that.
Sure, okay, just checking.
I'm dealing with some. My partners in my committee are having trouble linking, so I'm dealing with that. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, great. So the minutes are approved. Now we'll move on to the public comment period, and members of the public, you can each take 3 minutes to bring some issues to the attention to this committee or make some comments on things that we've been doing. Before we get started, I'm going to use the chair's prerogative to take a minute to congratulate our member, Daphne Wu, who is the Middleton High School representative on the committee. Yes, everyone clap for Daphne. She's been nominated for Sustain Dane's 2020 Live Forward Award, and I'm very proud of Daphne for that achievement, and I look forward to seeing her win the award. I'll be pulling for you, Daphne, because I'll be attending the virtual Sustain Dane conference this year as a private citizen, not as a representative of this committee. So I'm sure the rest of the committee members join me, Daphne, in congratulating you for this achievement. So, all right. Do we have any members of the public who would like to say a few words?
I have a letter a neighbor passed along to me to read on his behalf, if that's okay.
Hearing no objection, go right ahead.
Okay. And dear City, this is from Kieran Furlong. Dear City of Middleton Sustainability Committee, unfortunately, I am unable to attend today's meeting in person, but would appreciate it if this letter could be read during the public comment period of the meeting. First of all, I would like to express my thanks as a resident to the Sustainability Committee for working on the extremely important issue of how we build and maintain an environmentally sustainable community here in Middleton. It is all too easy to think that we as individuals or as one small city cannot have an impact on critical global issues like climate change. That is not the case, as I believe we all have to do our part. As such, I would like to urge the Sustainability Committee to propose firm, measurable, and attainable actions that we can take as a community to address greenhouse gas emissions. As a parent, I feel an explicit responsibility to my children and future generations to take action now, and I know I am not alone in Middleton with this sentiment. Specifically, I would like to suggest that the Sustainability Committee looks at the proposals and goals relating to transportation in the updated City of Middleton Comprehensive Plan 2020. I think the committee could propose concrete actions with quantifiable outcomes that align with the broad goals to increase bicycling, shared micromobility, and transit use in Middleton. As a resident, I would support such proposals and bring them to the attention of my representative on the City Council. Thank you for accepting my comments and for the good work you are doing on our behalf. Yours sincerely, Kieran Furlong.
Thank you, Kermit. And if you would please forward that to Kelly so that we can have it available to the members.
Okay, will do.
Thank you. Any other members? I'm sorry, go ahead, Kermit.
I don't know when the best time to put in a IT tech help question. Is there a single Zoom link as opposed to the multi-step process that the agenda requires?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that find that right now. We usually, our administrator doesn't like us to do that because I guess it causes Zoom bombers to be able to get in.
It makes it, yeah, I understand. All I know is that I've been getting email from Sherry Gruder, who is supposed to be here for the presentation, that she's having trouble logging in, and I don't know why.
Does she have the current link?
I just emailed it to her.
She's never had trouble before.
Yeah, so I don't understand.
She's showing up down on the.
Oh, did she just get in?
Is she in?
Oh, good.
I don't know if she. Can you hear us, Sherry?
Yeah, it looks like she just had a comment to Daphne. So I think she's here.
Okay, that's encouraging. And then I don't know where Bob Owen is, but okay.
And I see Dick and Andy have joined us too, Kelly.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
As a member of the public, yes.
Okay. I talked with Dave from MG&E, and I asked about if they're 100% filled with solar requests for the airport array, and he said they're at about 70%. And so if we want to promote the citizens of Middleton to get involved with that, to buy parts of that, he would welcome it, because he said even if it fills up, if they had a long list of people, it would encourage MG&E to do another solar array. So it would just help our goals if we could get more people interested in signing up for that.
Okay, thank you for that comment, Deb. We can consider that maybe at the next meeting. That's something we can talk about, some concrete ways to do that encouragement.
Thanks, Deb. Can I jump on as a member of the public?
Yes.
All right. I am somewhat involved with Madison 350, and I know that Kermit has done a lot of work, and I really just wanted to voice my support for Middleton taking some really bold climate action. I used to be a high school teacher, worked with Deb's successor at the high school for several years, and part of why I've left high school and try to do more work in applied sustainability is just a sense from like personally and my students that we need to do things now. I can't just be teaching 14-year-olds to step up to the plate, although Daphne here is a model of what young adults can do in our community, but as adults who have power to make change now, I really think it's our moral responsibility to do so.
Thank you for that comment, Allison.
Thanks, Allison.
Thanks.
Stephanie, this is Bob Owen. I'm on the telephone because I have no clue how to get on your computer link. I have the same problem that Sherry apparently had. I could not use that link.
Bob, did you try going to zoom.us? If you type that into your browser and go to that website, then there's an option on that website to join meeting, and then that's where you put in the meeting ID, which is at the top of the agenda, and then after that you would put in the password, which is also at the top of the...
Yes, I have those numbers. Okay, I'll try that.
Yeah, the key is...
I'll stay on the phone in the meantime because
sure.
I'm not sure it's going to work.
Okay, that's great. The key is to go to zoom.us.
And then join
Okay.
meeting.
And then, yeah,
Yes.
and then click the join meeting. Yeah.
And then enter the meeting ID and the password, both of which are on the agenda, so you'll need those. All right, well, good luck, Bob. Anybody else from the public want to make a comment?
Yeah, I want to second what Deb said. I had asked actually to get this on the agenda today, and I was actually disappointed that we weren't able to discuss the point that Deb made about this 30% still shared solar not being committed. And we need to get that into Middleton so we can work towards our overall community energy, renewable energy goals. So yeah, I second what Deb said.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Dick. And like I said, we'll be able to talk about that next time. Tonight, we already had some presentations lined up, items 5 and 6 on the agenda. And of course, we still need to settle on the operating budget expenditures for this year. And so to try to keep the meeting at 90 minutes, as has been suggested, we had to limit the time tonight to the items that are currently on the agenda. But Kelly, please make a note for next time that looking ahead to activities at the end of this year and in 2021, trying to optimize the uptake of those shares, and I even get a waiting list going to incentivize MG&E to consider another array. That should be a priority for this committee.
Well, I want to follow up, please. It was not communicated at all that we're now trying to cram everything into 90 minutes. We've been having
I'm going to
30-minute meeting, and I thought we were going to put this on the agenda for a short item. So I just wanted to be known that I'm not happy.
I'm going to use the chairs. I'm going to use my authority as chair to rein in a discussion of something that was not publicized on the agenda. It's fine if members of the committee want to take off their committee hat and make a comment as part of the public comment period. But I want to be responsive to the comments received after the last meeting from both you, frankly, and others, that, you know, I need to do a better job reining in the discussion. So I'm going to use my chair's authority right now to do that. Do we have any other comments from members of the public?
You're getting a bit more feedbacky, Lisa. I don't know if there's anything you can do there. But.
Well, I could. Is it any better? Yeah, okay. It must have just been something going on. All right, not seeing any hands or hearing anybody speak up from the public, Let's move on to Kelly, to you for the staff update.
Okay, so the first thing is our comprehensive plan timeline. We're attempting to finish all of the major edits to the plan by November 24th in order to take the plan back to the Plan Commission for review. And then we need to schedule a public hearing. You have to do that a full month in advance. So the public hearing will take place on one of the two following timelines, either during the Plan Commission meeting on January 12th, with then hopefully council adoption on January 19th, or if our timeline gets pushed back because of how long our edits take over the next couple weeks, or actually the next few days, then the Plan Commission meeting on January 26th would be the public hearing and with council adoption on February 2nd. So even though that's in the new year, that still feels like a tight timeline to us. So there's a ton of edits to finish doing, and I think it'll end up being about 150 or 60 page document. And so we're really looking forward to getting that off our plate so we can move on to other things, but we have to make sure we do the edits. The Lead for Cities data collection continues. I attended Greenbuild last week virtually instead of going to San Diego, which was sad, but there were really great webinars or sessions, I thought, and my 3 takeaways were that I used some of the webinars to look at zoning codes. That's what we'll be rewriting next year as the big push in the planning department, is a total rewrite of our zoning code, which is really important and probably more perhaps controversial than what's in the comp plan, because it actually holds teeth and will have some teeth behind it policy-wise. And also there was a lot of talk about net zero buildings, but beyond just net zero buildings, talking about grid harmonization with net zero, meaning that when you build buildings, not only do they not use energy, but they also can, when they do make energy from excess solar, that can be put back into the grid and it's managed along with the grid. And it gets really complicated, but it's interesting. The other things people talked about were embodied carbon, and then resiliency is always a really big topic at Greenbuild these days. Moving on, the solar project that we're working on to install solar on 3 of our municipal buildings, that will still go ahead in January. We'll bid the project in January, award it the first week in February, with installation in late March, April, hopefully. And that will be on the Lakeview Park Shelter, which will then, that'll take 100% of, that'll account for 100% of the energy used there. And then our Municipal Operations Center will have solar, and also hopefully our EMS building will also have solar. And then the other thing on my plate right now, before the end of the year and then at the beginning of next year, is applying to the State Office of Energy Innovation grants. And this was the grant that we received along with 6 other communities to do our major energy planning for the city. And that's complete. And now they have, they've rolled out grants for renewable energy projects that are combined with energy storage and battery storage, which is really exciting. And I think it's really well timed because we'll be putting these 3 large solar installations in. And so it seems like a perfect time to then put storage in some of these projects along with that, perhaps not only to use energy efficiently, but also as a resiliency addition to the city. So I'm excited about that, but it's going to be a lot of work in the next couple months to pull that grant together. And I'm meeting with Jeanette Lazax from Slipstream on Friday to talk through that grant. And she's great to brainstorm with, to help give us some ideas on how to write that and, the direction we could go. And then there's another grant, the Dane County Clean Energy Economic Development Grants. And these are basically about, there's only a pot of money, I think it's $135,000 that the county is giving away. The grant is due very quickly, December 8th. It's a really short application, but they're looking for communities in Dane County to tackle some of the initiatives in the Dane County Climate Action Plan. And because it's less money and it's a really quick turnaround, they realized that some of the projects might be scoping projects where you help further define what's in the Dane County Climate Action Plan and then write your own plan for how you want to work on that in your city. You can also do really tangible projects, but it does have to have an economic value along with energy and climate change solutions. So I might apply for that, but I'm also going to talk with Jeanette about that to brainstorm some ideas. I'm going to send the committee the link to that grant and the OEI grant if you want to look through just the quick brief about it to see if anything resonates with you or if you have any ideas. I'm not going to talk about it right now, just during the staff updates, but you know, if anyone wants to talk with me over the phone or one-on-one, I'd be happy to listen to any of your ideas for those two grants. And I think that that's all I'm going to say about staff updates. The only last thing is I would just throw in a pitch that in December, we might work on a work plan for the committee for the next year. And if we can't get to that, then definitely first thing in January. But to go over priorities and also to discuss how to proceed in the new year on our plan rewrite so we don't get stuck there. And hopefully in the new year, talk about budgeting up front so we can sort of plan out our year and know what we need money for and account for that as we go along instead of at the end of the year. We did it like this last year too. So hopefully we can get on track next year earlier. So with that, I am done with my staff update, and I'd like to turn it over to Allison Madison, who I've been working with and meeting with a few times over the last 8 months, talking about salt use and how to reduce salt in our lakes. And she's the salt whites coordinator at Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District. And Madison, did you want to just speak, or did you have a screen share?
Kelly, may I interrupt for a second? I do want to get to Allison, but first I wanted to see if any committee members had questions on items that you brought up. And yes, that would be great to see the grant or the funding opportunity announcements so we can take a look and see if we have any ideas and share. Members, if you have any questions, please speak up. I did have one, and that was just, I missed a date. It was your very first item, November 24th, a public, what was it? No, public hearing on January 12th during the Plan Commission with the council adoption of the comp plan on what date?
January 19th.
January 19th, thank you. That's all I had. Anyone else have questions for Kelly?
Just a quick one. You mentioned Slipstream and Jeanette Ozak. Is that kind of a gratis consult, or is that involving any money that we should be aware of allocating?
No, it's just a talk. She's a friend, and she worked with us on the last grant. Right. And so she was hoping that, you know, these are now implementation grants. So what the county would like to see and what the Sustainability Leadership Collaborative would love to see is for the 7 communities that worked on our energy plan grant to get together again and write a large grant for implementation of those energy plans in our community. But the grant just dropped and it's due in early January. And so due to COVID, the holidays, and not having enough pre-planning time, we didn't feel like we could bring all 7 communities together for a massive grant. But we're hoping to work on that over the next year because these grants will be annual, at least for a few years, is what we've been told. So hopefully that will happen, but for next year, it might be more of a one-off trying to get a battery storage something going in Middleton with additional solar or at least storage on what we have already. It's going to be much more competitive this year because they've opened up the grants to almost everyone. So we're competing against a much larger pool of people.
Great, thank you. We're at Kelly's time. Any other questions though from committee members? If not, then we'll turn the floor over to Allison.
Thank you, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here tonight. I would ask if I could be given screen sharing abilities, and I'm going to share then a few slides. Thank you. Cool. So everybody see a couple photos right now? You got a sandhill crane? Yep, okay, great. So this is a Twitter post that I made a few months ago. I started at Saltwise in June, and I hadn't really heard of it before. They did not have staff members until I started this June, even though the organization has been around for about 5 years. It's a partnership of the City of Madison, Dane County, MAMSWAP, of which Madison is a member, the Madison Area Municipal Stormwater Partnership, and then also the Sewerage District. So all 4 of those partners, along with like Madison Water Utility, Dane County Public Health, and others, have been concerned about rising concentrations of salt in our fresh water. And so for the last 5 years have been trying to raise awareness around this issue, largely focusing on road salt. So the photos I have here show a lot of excess salt along the gutter, and then our Odana Pond here. And the big idea really is that all the salt that we bring into Wisconsin, whether it be road salt, water softener salt, salts and fertilizers, any salt that we put down is ending up in our fresh water. So all the salt we bring in is going into fresh water. It might be lakes, it might be streams, it might be our groundwater, but we are salting our land and our water, which is something that like ancient conquerors used to do to their enemies so that they could kill them off, and we're doing it to ourselves. So I'm gonna share just a little bit of data on kind of current levels of chloride right now in some of our waters, and then also some of the things that are being done locally, and maybe some ways that Middleton can kind of take a lead in this area. So going forward here. So we have a graph showing you chloride levels. So chloride is the anion. So it's really travels easily through the soil profile, a little more easily than sodium. So chloride tends to be what's measured out of sodium chloride, out of salt. So you can see chloride levels here over time since the 1950s, when we started using road salt in the Madison area, have been increasing. So natural levels would be less than 10 milligrams per liter. And Lake Wingra, which is the smallest lake, so it has the least ability to dilute that incoming salt, very high concentrations. The target for that lake, according to their management plan, is 40 milligrams per liter. And we can see that even Lake Mendota, bordering Middleton, the largest lake, the greatest ability to dilute that salt, is still above that value. And to note here also, the concentrations of chloride tend to be taken at the surface because it's just easiest to do that. But if you think about it, salt water is more dense than regular water. So really, the saltiest water is at the bottom. And in some lakes, I don't have data right now on Wisconsin because we haven't done a ton of research into this, but there are lakes that have been measured in New York State where the water sinking down to the bottom of the lake has gotten so salty that it's preventing lakes from doing their natural mixing, their seasonal mixing, which then changes the biogeochemistry of the lake, nutrient cycling significantly. So chloride salt showing up in our lakes, it's also starting to show up in our groundwater. So you can see from the 1970s through to almost today that we're seeing growing concentrations of salt in our groundwater. Now, as you know, our groundwater is also our drinking water. The saltiest well in the Madison, so these are Madison Municipal wells. They've been testing. I don't know, I don't have data on Middleton wells, but well 14 right here, if you can see my cursor, that's right by Spring Harbor Middle School, University and Whitney Way. That's currently the saltiest well in Madison. Some residents say that they can taste the salt, even though it's not technically at the taste threshold. But I think we all know that some people are better tasters and better smellers than others. So some people find that to be taste salty already. And it is also above the level that people who have hypertension or are supposed to be on low sodium diets should be drinking. So this is showing you in the Madison municipal wells, again, that increase in chloride. Not only, so this is upper and lower aquifers, and then even in the lowest or lower aquifers, we're starting to see that salt grow. This is maybe even a bigger concern than the fact that salt is showing up in our lakes, because our lakes can flush out. I mean, the salt will be moving downstream. It doesn't disappear, right? It's still there in the water. But the fact that we're salting our groundwater, the groundwater aquifers are not flushing out. So this is something that we're going to be stuck with this problem for decades. So the big idea is that we can kind of start to change and not make it worse. I wanted to show one screen here to show you this isn't just a Madison problem. As I mentioned, we have salt coming from road salt, salt coming from our water softeners. Other sources of chloride are fertilizers, dust suppressants that are used on gravel roads. This is a map that I made on UW Stevens Point well water viewers. So these are private wells. These are people who live outside of municipal areas, have their own private wells, get their wells tested for chloride. And like I said before, natural levels of chloride would be under 10 milligrams per liter. And we can see anything from this light green onward is elevated chloride. And even like Wood County, pretty rural county north of here, we see some spikes there in chloride. So part of this, as I mentioned, is water softeners. I grew up north of Eau Claire, where we don't have water softeners because we have different bedrock, but the bedrock geology here with limestone and dolomitic limestone, so calcium and calcium magnesium carbonate, has a lot of the calcium magnesium that makes it hard. And so we tend to soften our water. So when we do that, typically people use sodium chloride in water softeners through an ion exchange. And then all the chloride gets discharged in wastewater, and the sodium gets discharged with your softened water. So we're sending sodium and chloride to our wastewater treatment plants, and those plants cannot remove salt from water. I did not think about this ever. I have a water softener in my house, and my thought was just until I had this job, the wastewater treatment plant will take care of that, but they can't. They've looked into the options, and it's like reverse osmosis on all of the wastewater that comes from their entire sewerage district, which would increase sewerage rates by 500%. And the energy costs of that would also also multiply the energy costs that they have, which are already literally astronomical. The amount of energy that's used to clean our wastewater is enough to take a rocket ship back and forth to the moon 5.5 times every year. So a lot of energy already, and we cannot, they're not going to be able to remove salt. So what they're doing instead is trying to reduce the salt that's coming to them. So home water softeners. We can make sure that in new buildings and in our existing buildings, but if we can put codes in place that we do not soften water that doesn't need to be softened. We don't need to soften our hoses. It's actually bad for our lawns. We don't need to be softening cold water, our toilets, etc. So individuals can get free chloride test strips from the sewerage district to do that. We can also work to make sure our home water softeners, municipal water softeners, business water softeners are working as efficiently as possible. So they can be adjusted for local water hardness and how much water is being used. That impacts the reserve capacity. That's how you change that. So there's an online assessment tool to figure out if your softener is a clunker or not, and you can ditch it, or also to get those optimized. So typically an optimization runs around $50 to $75. Right now in the town of Dunn and McFarland, the district is paying for a rebate program so that homeowners can get their softeners optimized for free. So typically an optimization reduces salt use by 30 to 40%. Okay, so pretty significant savings just by optimizing those softeners. Sometimes even brand new softeners, they might be able to be efficient, but they aren't necessarily tuned to run efficiently with their factory default settings. So it's kind of like you buy an AC unit and it's cranked up to high and you don't need that, but you're running it that way without even realizing. Additionally, there are technologies out there that are salt-free. The district isn't promoting specific brands right now, but that is an option that I think is really where we need to move. And finally, it's not on the slide, but I would say that in Europe, people cannot soften their water down to 0. They're only allowed to soften it to like a few grains, the way that they measure it, grains per gallon of hardness. But in the US, we consider water soft only when it's down to 0 grains per gallon. So we can run things a lot more efficiently if we allow for a little bit of hardness. Okay, a second way to tackle the issue of salt is that of reducing road salt use. So SaltWise, with the city of Madison, has been running a training program, and we currently have over 700 individuals in the Madison-Dane County area that have been trained to learn about SaltWise practices. So these are some pretty basic things that just have not been a part of anyone's radar to actually think about salt, right? Salt has been relatively cheap. If we put it down, that's great. We keep people safe, roads are clear, win-win. Now that we want to actually think about the fact that it's not a win-win to just dump salt on our land and into our water, how about we calibrate our trucks and we actually know how much salt we're putting down per lane mile or per square foot? Okay, if we can calibrate our trucks, we can actually then apply according to application rates instead of just saying, yeah, it looks pretty bad out there today, let's crank her up to 10. Okay, and 10 on one truck and 10 on another truck might be totally different, right? So calibrating our equipment, applying according to rates, basic education of people who are going to be applying salt. And then one of the big steps that really needs to happen is switching over to liquid brine. So the DOT has been a huge proponent of this. And by switching to brine, counties like Jefferson, just to the east of us, have actually reduced salt use by 70%, 70% on state highways. And that is adjusted for winter severity. So really huge potential there in salt savings. And also 70% of salt for Jefferson County was $500,000 last year in salt savings. And now that's just in the salt itself, because we know salt is extremely corrosive. So pretty much for every dollar you spend on salt, you need $10 in the bank to pay for the damage to roads and bridges and vegetation, not even talking about water here. Damage to cars, okay? So billions of dollars per year that we're damaging our infrastructure with this excessive salt use. So SaltWise really wants to be the champion of this message and help support Middleton and any community that wants to start taking some steps forward and kind of what we call right-sizing salt use. We're not saying we can't use salt. We want people to be safe. This salt is a great tool, but let's use it wisely. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple things here on our website. Bring that up. So on the SaltWise website, we are working to promote people who've gone through the program. So supporting people in the area. So if we can tell residents in Middleton, if you're going to hire businesses, individuals, if you're going to hire someone, let's hire someone who's SaltWise certified. So like the Bruce Company, they've really been a leader in this community. Our outreach tools include case studies of different companies like Bruce Company, who has reduced salt use by 1/3. This year, they're working on switching over to brine, or I should say totally switching, incorporating a lot more brine. So I think those savings will increase some more. And then we've got different communities like Fitchburg, Shorewood Hills, which have realized huge salt reductions by by 30. I heard between 30 and 40%. They're trying to be conservative here, by calibrating trucks, educating their drivers, etc. One big carrot is that the sewerage district does have grant money. I have that linked right now here under grants. So there is money available if the city of Middleton would like to get some equipment to help them reduce salt use. They could apply for a road salt reduction grant. There's also money available to get better, more efficient softeners. And finally, there's a chloride reduction innovation grant. Come up with some really cool idea about how you can reduce salt use, and the district will be able to help fund that. Okay, so one of the things that's come up recently is people that are actually taking the salt brine out of the water softeners, adding just a little bit more salt to it and using that as their road salt, their winter de-icing salt. So you're totally taking that salt that would have gone to the wastewater, that would have been discharged into streams, and using it as road salt. So I think with that, oh, one last thing here. So I'm going to be speaking along with Kelsey Shepard from the town of Dunn about that Salt Savers program on November 24th through the local government center. On December 10th, we have a webinar hosted by the DNR, their Sustainable Strategies webinar, with a few different representatives from from Wisconsin communities talking about salt reduction. And then finally, January 11th to the 15th, we're working with partners across the state to promote salt awareness. And we have a number of speakers that are going to be there. It's going to be all virtual webinars. So we have a full slate Monday through Friday with people like Hillary Dugan from UW-Madison, veterinarians talking about salt and pets, etc. So with that, I will stop my share. I don't know where I'm at time-wise, but if I have time for a couple questions, I would take them.
Thank you, Allison. And we do, that was such a good presentation. I want to make sure the members have a chance to ask a couple questions. I will ask, I'm sure you were going to do this, but please share your slides with Kelly so she can circulate those. And then also, I'd really appreciate it if you'd also include links to those 3 sessions that you, or well, the week of activities, but then also the 2 sessions that you mentioned.
Okay. Can do. Thank you.
Any members have questions for Allison? Chris.
Question?
Hey, Allison. I was curious. I was having issues with my internet, so I don't know if I missed something, but how are you promoting this to residents? How are they seeing this?
Yes, great question. So I'm working with someone from the City of Superior, the Fox Wolf Watershed, Root Pike Watershed, Waukesha, and Milwaukee River Keepers, and we are developing our campaign strategy right now. And this is the first time this has ever happened. And so we want to utilize our networks as much as possible. So I would really, Chris, love to, if there's any way that Middleton Sustainability can help us get the word out, we would love that support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kermit, we'll go to you next.
A couple of questions. One, who are the webinars and the events you highlighted targeted at? And do we want to get it out to the public, or do we want to get public works staff in, or what?
Mm-hmm. That's great. So every day kind of has its own little flavor. So Monday is going to be Hillary Dugan, and then Bill Hintz is from the University of Toledo, and they're both ecologists, limnologists. So a little bit more of an academic focus and how salt is impacting our lakes and freshwater. And so I'm reaching out to Trout Unlimited, trying to get the word out through UW networks, etc. The day when we had the veterinarian, we're going to try to put posters up in local pet stores. I know people aren't going out a lot, but your pet still needs food, so maybe you're still going to PetSmart. And so I titled that seminar is Be Salt Wise and PetSmart. On Wednesday, we have Amy Berrio from Madison Water Utility and Kevin Masaryk, who's a groundwater specialist from UW Stevens Point. And so that one, we really would love to get some more local decision makers, municipal officials, to see that salt really is having a huge impact if it's in our groundwater. For most of Wisconsin, groundwater is drinking water. And so this is an issue we need to really be aware of. And then on our last day, it's focused a little bit more towards homeowners, business owners. We have someone from the water softening industry, as well as someone who does like seal coating of asphalt and talking about salt use, kind of winter salt use, and what homeowners and business owners can do differently to protect their investments.
Okay. So yeah, so if you can get the information with that kind of breakdown on it, I mean, I think through our website or newsletter, maybe we could help push it out and let people know which part might be of most interest. Related question, we're on board with it as a sustainability committee. We think it's great to take care of the environment, not pollute it anymore, even with salt. What about like the Public Works Department? Do we have a way to kind of connect you with our city's public works, or is that already happening?
Yep, so we do have, there are a few people from the city of Middleton that have taken this training, and that's what makes the city eligible for the grants. I think there are maybe a few drivers that haven't, but we have some at least who have. I haven't gotten any information on reductions. I'm not sure if they're tracking salt, but I do have a meeting coming up in another week with somebody from Public Works. We were going to meet in person and try to see some of their equipment, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. So I'd say you guys are maybe like, you get a C right now, maybe a B minus, but we'd like to get you into that A category for salt.
Well, we'd like that too. In the interest of time, we'll go to one more question from Dick. And then members, if you have any other questions for Allison, please post them in the chat and maybe she can answer those either during the meeting or afterwards. Go ahead, Dick.
I was actually interested in your point that water softener brine, as it's being flushed, could be used as a way of using that brine, capturing it. Obviously, individual homeowners, it'd be very hard to capture that brine. But I'm wondering, at commercial users, what potential would we have as a community to be able to look at hotels or other large entities that use a lot of, need a lot of water softening, and what would it take to add on capture of this brine? I think you said you needed to augment a little bit more salt with it. The brine would have a lot of calcium in it, which would be calcium chloride, although the chloride is going right through into the water. So it's really exchanging calcium for sodium. So we're capturing a brine with a lot of calcium. I don't know how much chloride, because the volume of it would be low. I mean, how practical is this, and what could it mean for our community?
Yeah, thank you, Dick, for your question. So right now, this is being, brine is being reclaimed from a large softener at the Lucky building, so right by UW campus, and they've been doing this for several years. So the calcium chloride, calcium and magnesium chloride are also used as de-icers, and they actually work at lower temperatures than sodium chloride. So it works well. Yes, we're still putting chloride down, right? I mean, we're still putting these chemicals down on our pavement, but we've at least taken them out of the waste stream, the wastewater stream. So it's a proven method. And we're starting to see a few more people be interested in this. I had a conversation just last week with someone from the Forest Products Lab at UW who wants to do this. And I would say that you are completely correct. We want to hit some of those large water users. So if we could get hotels, I think like Greenway Station kind of area where we have that source to take that, capture it there. I think we just need a champion. We need to get somebody excited about this, like Mike Gresh at the Lucky building, who can do this and then use that material locally.
And just a quick follow-up. Could you identify just exactly what it would take equipment-wise and capacity-wise to do a pilot on this? I mean, this is a really good idea, rather than just putting all that waste from the water softener exchange back down into the sewer system, which you have to treat. if we could capture that.
Which we can't treat. That's the thing. We aren't treating it, right? So it's just being discharged into the
right. So
Badger.
instead of it going to you, if we could actually use it in the city to be able to save on our own application, just use that material. I would like to see our committee support a pilot study or something to determine just exactly what would it take to do this on a scale of the businesses and commercial operations that we have.
I think that's great. I know that we had some time constraints here, so I don't know about getting into kind of the equipment right now, but I'd be really happy to come back at a later meeting, or maybe I could kind of prepare some materials that could be shared out about that.
That would be great, Allison. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I did put my email into the chat here. Otherwise, Kelly knows how to get a hold of me, and I will get that information about upcoming events to everyone as well. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thank
Okay,
you.
let's move on to agenda item number 6, which is the presentation of the sustainability plan rewrite, the chapters on greenhouse gas emissions, which actually is a new write because I don't think it existed before, and the energy chapters. Kermit, I'm going to turn it over to you. Please note we have 25 minutes for this
Okay.
portion.
I'm going to jump right into it then. Thanks. I am excited and delighted to present the revisions and recommendations from our Middleton Sustainability Plan Greenhouse Gas and Energy Chapters Review Subcommittee, all made with the goal of addressing the climate crisis and improving our community's sustainability. Before anything else, I must highlight and acknowledge one of the most passionate, concerned, engaged, and informed teams I have ever had the pleasure of working with. Sherry Gruder, Bob Owen, Carol Phelps, and, well, I was there too. The climate crisis has compelled each of us to advocate climate action for years. The fact that the climate crisis, these chapters, and sustainability profoundly interconnect inspired us each to invest dozens and dozens, literally dozens and dozens of hours in and out of our meetings to review, revise, and refine what you have been given to look over. To manage our presentation within the 25-minute limit, Bob, Sherry, and I will each have 7 minutes to cover our sections. I'm providing an overview and intro to our recommendations, as well as some brief highlights. Bob will elaborate on building electrification and clean fuel substitution for natural gas, and Sherry will emphasize energy efficiency in buildings. If everything goes smoothly, we can have up to 4 minutes for Q&A before the end of our time. We reviewed 2 existing chapters, greenhouse gas and energy, and added a placeholder for a new one, climate change, resilience, adaptation, and mitigation. Each chapter was provided with an updated vision statement along with a new background paragraph to provide context for that vision. In addition, each chapter has a new overview section to describe the overall intent and constraints of that chapter's indicators and actions. This presentation will not attempt to read through all of the recommendations. My presentation and the overview sections in the document address some of the thinking, intentions, and constraints behind our recommendations. However, first, just to recap in brief, the greenhouse gas emissions chapter has as its vision, as a responsible city on a planet imperiled by climate change, Middleton commits to rapidly and equitably cut its greenhouse gas emissions citywide in half by 2030 and to net zero by 2040. The climate change mitigation, adaptation, and resilience placeholder chapter has as a tentative vision, as a responsible city on a planet imperiled by climate change, Middleton recognizes the need to rapidly and equitably increase resilience while both mitigating and adapting to climate change. This will see a wide variety of strategies and tactics implemented to do so beyond just greenhouse gas reduction and energy alternatives. And finally, the energy chapter vision. The City of Middleton leads in energy efficiency and renewable energy generation and use. Public and private energy producers and consumers use practices and technologies to make Middleton a net zero city that meets all of its energy needs resiliently, equitably, and healthfully from clean, renewable sources. We recognize that this must be a living document and that best practices and recommended technologies will change over time as new systems and products become available with increased efficiency, cost effectiveness, and life cycle sustainability. For example, CFLs, once all the rage, have been superseded by LED bulbs and fixtures. Each chapter has a table of indicators and actions. For all chapters, the indicators track metrics for the city of Middleton. As such, these indicators do not directly correlate necessarily with the actions listed. Instead, they attempt to identify and reflect progress made to improve overall community sustainability by the net effect of actions performed under this plan, along with any coincidental beneficial overall system changes beyond the scope of this plan. Setting the specific values for each baseline, performance, and target requires resources and time beyond the current scope of our subcommittee. Any indicator targets should be calculated to meet levels implied by IPCC guidance so that Middleton can do its proportionate share to help keep global warming below 1.5 C and in alignment with Middleton's clean energy resolution. The actions have not been thoroughly evaluated for technical, financial, or political feasibility. They have been presented as aspirational responses to a climate crisis, a sustainability crisis, and a survivability crisis that demands even greater, deeper, and bolder action. The problems we confront beg for involvement by higher levels of government and broader swaths of society than we control. Nevertheless, we feel and advocate a moral imperative to act, to call for action, and to influence others to act. We must do so to the extent we can, because we all, even in a small Wisconsin city, must do our part and more. Where actions proposed requiring, promoting, prohibiting, or implementing, it is left as part of the process of plan implementation to determine the appropriate governmental, political, or social interventions. We can accelerate these actions with supportive measures, fiscal, financial, and educational, beyond mere mandates. Carrots can help people afford, choose, and adopt lower energy consumption, lower carbon emission tech, despite possibly higher initial costs. We have also attempted to provide, within many of our specific actions, a next step to help provide a tangible, concrete way to move forward from the broad statement of action or indicator. Most of the old actions from the 2010 plan and the 2017 update have been accomplished, obsoleted, revised, or incorporated into new actions. Therefore, we have designated all such original actions from those revisions for deletion. Not just the plan, but the execution must be living and dynamic. Because of the close relationship between energy, greenhouse gases, and climate change, we should actively engage in implementation of the Dane County Climate Action Plan, the OEI Municipal Energy Plan, and adapt relevant provisions from the Wisconsin Clean Energy Toolkit. We should also continue to integrate these resources with the Middleton Sustainability Plan. As we continue to collaborate with other local governments to achieve Dane County Climate Action Plan and Middleton's climate goals, we need to take advantage of opportunities for economies of scale and implementation of best practices. In the case of mobile energy consumption and use, a major partner with stationary energy use, we have expanded and highlighted in our recommendations a variety of proposals to support and increase the use of renewable energy for transportation. And with that overview, I will pass the baton on to Bob. Thank you, Bob. Are you unmuted?
Bob, you're muted.
You're muted.
And would you like me to pull up your outline that you sent to me via email or no?
No, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Kermit. Fossil natural gas, I'd like to speak this evening about getting off of fossil natural gas in buildings. Fossil natural gas is a problem due to both CO2 and methane emissions. As we become more dependent on fracked gas, methane emissions tend to increase. This is particularly true to the extent that the Trump administration regulatory changes actually take effect. So actually natural gas is becoming a more problematic fuel from a climate standpoint as we go forward in time. MG&E needs a nudge on natural gas. It is
Mr. Owen, you're
on gas decarbonization.
Yeah, you're.
Bob, you're breaking up a little bit. I wonder, are you on the?
Other states are planning to
Bob,
expansions take place. Can you hear me?
You're breaking up. Can you turn your video off?
Yeah.
Maybe that'll help.
I was going to suggest turning off your video as well.
Okay, is that off now?
Nope.
Okay. I'm trying to turn it off.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
How do we use gas? Residential and commercial institutional users use it mostly for heating, 80% or so, perhaps 10% for water heating. Other uses, cooking and so forth, are smaller. The same is probably largely true of industry in Middleton. Some industries elsewhere use processes that involve large amounts of natural gas use. I don't have them in Middleton. We may use a little bit in the ready mix concrete plant on Highway 14. How do we get off fossil natural gas here in Middleton? Two basic approaches. We can electrify where reasonably possible. We can electrify space and water heating over the next 15 years or so using heat pumps. We can electrify cooking. We can replace smaller gas uses with electricity as well. Where electrification does not work, we can convert to a renewable gaseous or liquid fuel. Local options may include biogas, RNG, green hydrogen, renewable propane, ethanol. Cold climate heat pumps are a primary tool. In fact, they're our biggest tool to reduce gas use. An air source heat pump is like a big refrigerator that can both heat and cool our buildings. Cold climate AHPs sized properly for our buildings and climates can heat the building without assistance down to a daily mean outside temperature of about 0 degrees Fahrenheit. We can operate such machines, such devices, even at sub-zero temperatures to provide some heat. If we replace air conditioners in our existing buildings with air source heat pumps, we can use the existing gas furnace to back up the ASHP in sub-zero cold. Furnaces would be used so infrequently, 0 times last winter actually, in this scenario that they would probably never need replacement for the life of the building. In new buildings with high insulation levels, ASHPs may not need any backup sub-zero mean temperatures since severe cold generally lasts a short time and insulated buildings lose heat very slowly. We can also use heat pump water heaters for heating our water. I use about 80 therms annually for water heating at my house. If I would use a heat pump water heating, my gas usage charge would decrease about $36 a year, while my electric bill would increase about $141 due to the increased use of electricity. Eliminating MG&E's 72% per day gas connection charge would save me another $263 a year. If I would use both an ASHP and a water heater, I could eliminate all gas use in my home. The cost-benefit analysis on heat pumps is now skewed because gas is cheap, and we do not yet pay directly for the CO2 and CH4 emissions natural gas use causes. Gas prices are artificially low at present due to pandemic and Trump regulations. The specter of carbon taxes is looming, and such taxes are likely to affect natural gas very greatly. While the electric sector is benefiting from lower cost renewable energy, which will hold down electricity prices, the long-term price trend for natural gas is likely to be up. Cold climate heat pump technology and heat pump water heaters are relatively new and thus have not been fully optimized. Both will be more efficient when optimized. The cost comparison between fossil gas and renewable fuels, which could replace it, is also unfairly skewed against the clean fuels, which will get cheaper than they are now as we develop a variety of clean fuels at a larger scale. Getting off natural gas in buildings is pretty simple, but does require major investment. Electric heat pumps for space and water heating, electric cooking, electric drying. Retrofitting an existing home with all of those things might cost about $10,000 to $15,000. Financial help would be essential for many residents. We recommend that in our plan. For new homes and commercial buildings, however, the net initial cost of efficient electrification is zero or negative. It usually saves money. And in fact, it's crazy not to stop natural gas line extensions to new buildings for that reason. A new natural
1 minute, Bob, 1 minute warning.
Thank you. And that new natural gas fueled building is a 60 to 80 year commitment to climate chaos. We can get the remaining gas or fuel that we would need to replace natural gas from local renewable resources. I'll just list them. RNG from biogas, RNG from the power to gas process, hydrogen from the power to gas process, renewable ammonia from the power to gas process, renewable propane, low carbon ethanol. Nature tells us that we must stop burning fossil natural gas to protect our threatened planet. We must start leaving fossil gas behind now, not 60 years from now, not 80 years from now. Our plan suggestions jumpstart the process of getting natural gas out of Middleton buildings. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Bob. Sherry.
Yeah, hi. Can you all hear me? Yes. Oh, good. Okay, thank you, Kelly. So I'm just going to show you a few slides, and so I'm not going to go through page 34 to 37 of the plan, which is building energy use reduction. But what I'm going to do is tell you how we organized it and what goes into it. The next slide would be great. So this is a slide actually from San Diego, the city of San Diego, and these wedges are how they're going to get to zero net energy. And it's actually the same way that we thought about it in dealing with our proposal and the suggestions in the plan. So first would be energy management, and that is using software and things to track our energy so that we can actually optimize how we're using our energy, time of use, all sorts of things. So getting our buildings smart is basically what it is. The next wedge of that is, oh no, same slide please. The next wedge of that is decarbonized electricity. That's something that we're relying on MG&E to do. They have goals to do it. So that would mean that right now we're getting maybe 16% of our energy comes from renewables from MG&E, but in, by 2030, we might be at 50% clean energy as they keep adding in more solar and wind. So that's another part of the wedge. Then the next thing is new construction and building retrofits. So with retrofits, those are existing buildings, and that's most of our building stock. So we have to look at weatherization, couple that with heat pumps, which is what Bob was talking about, to reduce energy bills and improve resilience in extreme weather. We address new construction to get that to become zero net energy, which is very doable, and I'll show you that in a bit. Also community solar and increasing energy efficiency of all of our building stock, both our city buildings, commercial buildings, and residential buildings. And then, of course, long-term, build out as much as we can with photovoltaics. Next slide, please. So to give you an idea, we didn't build in resilience, but that's a chapter, as Kermit had said, that we absolutely need to have in there, and especially because it's in the 100% renewable energy resolution. But what this diagram does is it shows you what a smart building or a smart home would look like, and this basically encapsulates what we're suggesting in the plan, which is that you have smart appliances that are energy efficient. You use electrification, so electric stoves, like induction cooktops are much better than the old electric ones, air source heat pumps, energy management systems, smart water heaters, and then you couple that with solar and then eventually move to an electric vehicle. And that's how you get a smart home, and then you eventually would even add storage. But this gives you a sense of kind of the whole system that we're looking at, aside from how the building is designed and insulated and built in the first place. So what we have here is for city buildings, we would have energy efficiency upgrades at the time of replacement or sooner if we could get grant funding, which, by the way, Kelly, might be something to look at, not just solar plus storage, but look at some good air source heat pump replacements, which can be really costly for city building, air conditioning heaters and hot water heaters. And so most of the upgrades that we're suggesting in the plan are replacing those things, the air conditioners, heaters, and water heaters with a cold rated air source heat pump. For existing buildings, we're looking at a number of strategies. One is developing a benchmarking energy use standard for commercial and multifamily buildings. Most of the energy used in the city is used by commercial buildings, and in order to get to a zero net energy or a zero carbon position, they have to reduce their energy use. The only way to do that is for them, one, to know how much energy they're using and to be able to then attack it and change how they're doing that, which will save them money. And so that's what a benchmarking standard will do. These are very common around the country. We worked on one in Madison. There's one in the Dane County Climate Plan. And I think we all need to work together on that so that the building standards are the same for building owners and managers across our county. And maybe one day our state. Anyway, and then we also thought of, at the time of sale, another action item is to implement energy use disclosure requirements so that when somebody sells a multifamily building, a commercial business, or residential real estate, that they have to—
Sherry, excuse me, 1 minute warning.
Okay, say how much their energy use is, and then design new houses to zero net energy, and those with roof replacement to get solar when they replace their roof. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I just wanted to say that there are many standards out there right now. They're being used again across the country. Kelly talked about going to green build. Here's a list of a number of standards that are being used. So this is not new to architects and engineers, and they address not only energy use, but renewables and embodied carbon. So that's out there for us to use. And I guess just to also add to the fact that these codes are there is just to say that there's also a standard called RELY, which is
Sherry,
that works with LEED. I know I'm done,
time.
But it works with LEED to make resilience a part of these building standards. So when we write that chapter, we're looking holistically at it all, and the tools are already out there on the market for us. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Bob and Sherry.
Great.
Lisa, I'll leave it to you tell us how much time we have left out of the 25, but I kept everybody pretty tight to the 7-minute window. So hopefully we're.
Yes, I just want to say thank you, Kermit and Bob and Sherry, for obviously very hard, and Carol, yes, for your hard work reviewing this chapter, coming up with some great ideas, and not just having great presentations, but very conscientiously sticking to the time limit. It's much appreciated. I know I want to take some time to ask questions, just given the time. It's obvious we're going to go over my hour-and-a-half goal. I hope the members are able to stick around for the budget discussion. But I'll throw it open to members for any specific comments. I did have a question for Sherry about what it means to have a smart home versus, like, is there a way to have those energy efficient appliances but not incorporate the quote unquote smart technology that is also in many cases vulnerable to hackers and also to obsolescence when companies decide they're not going to provide that service anymore and people have invested in those smart products for their homes?
Well, certainly there are Energy Star appliances out there, and so there is a national rating system that when you buy anything, you can look at and I'm sure everybody's seen them, but you can look at, you know, how efficient it is on that rating system. So certainly people can look at that. Again, we want people to look at electric appliances. That's really important, and you know, I think that's a big educational hump for people, especially when it comes to stoves. Having cooked for 7 years on an induction cooktop, I could say it's even better and a third more efficient, 30% more efficient than gas, and it doesn't, and it has 50% less emissions. So yes, you don't have to have a smart system in the house, but you do in a commercial building because they're just too complicated and you can't optimize the energy use without it. But in a house, you can do without it. I think eventually they will help you to actually manage your energy use better. But yes, it's doable.
Other questions, Deb?
I have a question about net zero. You have mentioned net zero in the intro. Kermit started with that. And I thought our resolution for the city of Middleton was 100% renewable versus net zero. So.
Well, I think we've, in some cases, pushed the boundaries. In some cases, we've maybe provided an alternative. I do believe that it is more stringent to have all renewable, but then there are other expenditures, shall we say, in terms of emissions that need to be somehow countered that aren't necessarily addressed by renewable energy per se. And so that's, I think, part of the reason why we opted for on overall consideration, opted for net zero, because refrigerants, fluorocarbons that are emitted effectively have carbon dioxide equivalent values associated with them in terms of climate change and global warming impacts. And so we want to somehow offset or neutralize that kind of consideration as well. So Bob, Sherry, Carol, any?
Yeah, I would say, Deb, that that's a really good question. And there's zero embodied carbon, which is looking, and a lot of cities are looking at the carbon in the materials that the buildings are built with. So, you know, all of the cement and, you know, how you build them. But so there's actually a bigger step. And there are restorative buildings, not just zero net energy, but ones that produce more energy than they consume. I think zero net energy is more for buildings, and zero carbon is more overall. But the only way to get to 100% renewable energy is to reduce the energy use at least by 50%. And the only way to do that in the building sector is really by getting to at least zero net energy buildings, because that wedge of energy efficiency is so important. You know, it's worth about half the carbon. And then there are all these other things to do to get to the renewable energy part of it. So they really are very tightly linked. But that's an excellent question. And, you know, there are so many definitions out there of what it all, you know, zero carbon, zero embodied carbon, zero net energy, 100% renewable energy. And we're trying to work with as many as we can to get where the city wants to go.
Okay, so I was just wondering if we needed to be consistent between the two reports.
A good observation.
Yeah.
We'll go to Chris next, and then Dick.
I don't know if, because of how COVID came into this as we were putting this plan together and looking through it, but was there any discussion with your team members about how businesses moving their employees home potentially in the future versus actually using their buildings might impact what we're trying to accomplish? Because, you know, I've heard numerous organizations say, you know, we're not going to move back to the building. We're shutting that down. We're moving employees home. So I wondered if you guys even just thought about that in part of your discussion.
I think we thought about it, but we didn't factor it in so much because the issue is what are the buildings doing and how are they being run to minimize energy consumption and pollution generation. And so if we find ourselves with a lot of, you know, commercial building stock where they're not burning the midnight oil, so to speak, because nobody's working there at midnight and they're all at home or whatever time of day, then that's great. But we didn't specifically address it as like counting on it or planning on it. It's just, we want buildings to be using less energy and we're encouraging that with various means.
Although, Chris, I would say that where telecommuting comes in is a huge carbon savings, is in obviously not commuting. And so that's actually a transportation strategy. And so it's interesting that you bring it up in terms of how does that impact the buildings. But certainly we addressed it in transportation, and that's a really good point.
Because it could impact the homes. You know, you have more people at home. If they're not changing their ways, it doesn't matter if the commercial building isn't being used. You have other things going on. So I just was curious if you talked about it.
Yep. And that is the downside. Individuals are going to be staying at home more, and we don't have computerized building automation for the office building in the individual home. And so but like Sherry said, we have big savings in terms of transportation.
But actually, people are winding up paying more for their energy because they are home more. They can't set their thermostats back when their whole family's home all the time. And so I would hope that would actually be a good incentive for them to reduce their energy use.
Dick, we'll go to you next.
My turn? Okay. This topic is so important. And yes, we're talking about it, but I don't want to see us waiting until our new updated sustainability plan brings it all together. I would like to see us maybe at the next meeting. I mean, we only have 25 minutes or 30, whatever you're giving to it, to discuss this at this meeting. I would like to see us have an hour on this topic of looking at things that we can do now that need to be done now to be proactive, to really start pushing on working towards these goals. And we brought it up, Deb and I brought it up in the public 3-minute thing about taking advantage of the shared solar. And Bob, you did a great job of talking about renewable natural gas and how do we bring that in to cut our fossil natural gas usage? Because we are in a cold climate with a lot of heating done. I mean, our home has a high efficiency natural gas furnace, but we're going to need to be really looking at ways to just change how everything works here. And Sherry has so much knowledge. I want to keep her engaged. I mean, the fact that she moved from Middleton to Westport really disturbs me because we had one of the best experts in the state living right here in Middleton. So anyway, I would like to advocate and suggest to the chair and Kelly that we give a really lot of time to discuss this topic at the next agenda.
Okay, well, when we are wrapping up the meeting today, we'll compile our list of topics of unfinished business and new business that we want to address either the next time or in the future. But I think once we get through the budget discussion, all of our work for this year is, well, all the time sensitive work will be done, right, Kelly? The comp plan and all these chapters we've gone through. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have time next month on the agenda. Any other questions now for the three speakers and fourth
committee
contributor? Yeah. Okay, if not, I will thank you all again. And yes, we will come back to this topic. I mean, you know, we've been through all the chapters now, and the next step will be to somehow pull everything together into a revised draft that's easier to approach than, you know, the versions we have now. And I think we'll be coming back to that sometime in early 2021 after we see what the final comp plan is going to look like. You know, we're trying to make sure that these two plans are in sync with one another, and it's going to be an interesting challenge to do that with our goals and the review process that's laid out and that Kelly mentioned during her staff report. So stay tuned for how we can try to influence what comes out of the Planning Commission. Okay, Kelly, do you want to take us through the next agenda item?
Sure. I'm sorry, in your packet, I included what I thought was the spreadsheet, and it broke it out into 3 different pages on a PDF, which just is so enraging. So I'm really sorry about that. There's no way you can navigate that. It wasn't a ton of information or anything new, but I wanted you to be able to see what we've expended so far this year in our, how much money we have left in our operating budget. We didn't spend so much this year because of COVID, I think. Like I wasn't going to expensive conferences. We didn't hold any events. We didn't have any major expenditures for our Middleton Recycling Center. I think they tried to get the bulk of their stuff in the budget last season, which you might remember at the very end of the season, we were scrambling to get their signage paid for, like down to December 31st, I think. I paid by credit card to take it out of that year's budget. So we have right now a remaining balance of $7,977 approximately. The reason, can you see my cursor moving around? Okay, yeah. So right here is what our ledger says, but this $608 is actually the Greenbuild virtual conference that I paid for from my the business credit card, but they're reimbursing me as part of our grant. So I added that 608 to this number. And so we get that money back, which will be coming in this week. So that'll come out, that expense will come off of our operating budget. But then we have another expense, which is approximately $165 and whatever the shipping might be. So, you know, something like $200 maybe that would come off from a Middleton Recycling Center fee. Not a fee, but supplies. They needed some supplies for the center. So that comes out of our operating budget. So we have, you know, approximately $8,000 left, a little bit less. And so Lisa asked me to just write up what I felt we could spend some of the operating budget on. If we do not spend this remaining $7,900, the city gets it back, and I'm sure that they can put it to good use, but it does not carry over to next year no matter what we do. We also cannot decide we want to spend money on a consultant and secure the consultant, but pay them next year out of this year's operating budget. There's no way to do that. So it's sort of a, we lose it or we use it. And a lot of the things that I think we might have been able to use it on or wanted to were things that are going to be too time consuming to figure out by the end of year now, like hiring a consultant to do communications work or website work or someone to help us write the plan. I just don't feel like we're there yet to hand over our plan to anyone to start working on it for paying them right now. So that really limited, you know, the things that we had discussed. We had a budget meeting in August with a quorum of the Sustainability Committee, and we made a long list of potential items we could fund. So this is a subset of that, of things we could spend money on, one new thing or two new things, and then what we discussed at that meeting. And I can just go through them really quick if that's okay, and just maybe a minute per line item to make my pitch. And I will support whatever the committee decides. I fully trust your judgment, and if you feel comfortable with some of these or want to increase the dollar amount or decrease or nix it, I'll support whatever your decision is, but I would really appreciate if we could approve or deny some of this tonight so that I can get things going budget-wise to round this year out and start either making the payments to these items or not. I just really need some guidance, and I need a formal approval or denial of all these things. So Seed the Need is an opportunity that Deb brought to the budget meeting and to the committee, and it's about creating a platinum level prairie, which is basically a really robust prairie with 100 species of different plants, which increases biodiversity, increases infiltration and water cleansing when it rains on the Acker acquired property. It's the Acker Farm just north of Pheasant Branch, Frederick Hill, and it will become part of Pheasant Branch. It is county owned, but everything that happens on that plot of land directly affects Middleton, and it directly affects the Pheasant Branch Springs. The water will go in there and then percolate through the soil and come out in the Pheasant Branch Springs. So this is really great that Dane County is starting to acquire land, and especially that they acquired a big chunk of land, you know, just north of Pheasant Branch Conservancy. So they're looking for funding for the next 4 years as part of a match for money that they received from Clean Lakes Alliance. And they're hoping to raise $25,000 each year for the next 4 years for a $100,000 match to help restore this prairie. And this prairie, the last thing I'll say about it is that not only will it help with water infiltration, but it will also become a seed bank that is used to harvest seeds for prairies all throughout Dane County and probably in Middleton too. So we will reap the benefit from anything that happens on this land. And the reason why I like the thought of donating to this is because it gets us out of our silo of jurisdictions and hard lines and recognizes that water doesn't stop at our boundary levels, neither does biodiversity or, you know, seed flows and that kind of thing. So that's my pitch for that. So just because I just was asked to make a rough budget, I put $1,500 to $2,000 to donate just this year. I'm not asking for some kind of multi-year commitment. The next one, does anyone have any questions about that item particularly?
No, just love it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm so sorry. I said in chat, Deb, this idea is lovely. I just love this idea.
Oh, okay, great. And if it will help in the decision making, I just had the meeting prior to this. We have 17,000 out of the 25,000 raised so far.
Oh, that's great. Good.
A quick question here.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not see any item related to city garden. So did I miss anything?
You mean our community gardens?
Yep.
I believe that and this is part of the problem, me being so new, but I believe that there's another garden committee that has taken up that it looks like up here we paid something on bot garden utility bills, which I question now that I'm seeing that as something that we should necessarily be paying for. I haven't seen that in the past on our ledger. So now that makes me think I need to question these small amounts. But no, there's nothing in there about the community gardens.
I remember last year we talked about this, and we increased our support to city gardens. So maybe we can also consider that if we have, remaining balances here.
Oh yeah, okay, that's a good idea. I'm gonna make a note of that. Yeah, there will be some remaining balance that we could leave open, or we don't have to take the full amount on any of these offerings. So the next one is the next chapter academic tutoring, and we briefly discussed it at the end of a very long meeting last time. And I know that there were some concerns about health and the fact that COVID numbers are going up and people questioning, just the ability for the students to pull this off. I wanted to just update a bit by saying that the city met with the school district about this to kind of gauge their comfort level with this and to see if they would partner with the students, and why you had a lot of questions about why don't the students, aren't they able to use some, school space. The school said that it fully supports this, thinks it's amazing, and in fact, they want this tutoring program to last long after COVID dissipates in the community, because this is a need that's not going to go away even when kids return to school. That the kids that these students want to support and help are so low resourced that they need allocations of resource and mentoring and tutoring well beyond COVID. The reason that they can't get involved is because anything related to health data becomes a really huge litigation nightmare and legal problem for them, and they have to be really careful about what kind of information they would release if there was a positive COVID case. And if they were partnered with it, it would make the process more difficult. So they said that they give their blessing to the city for the city to help out. They just feel like they can't partner directly with them for legal reasons, but that they really support it and think it fills a gap. Two more things that I'll say, and then I will hand it off to you, is that Gabriella Hinahara, who's the director of the youth center is a city department and it's funded through the city, and they serve the middle school age kids. They do not serve the elementary kids. And they did a presentation at a council meeting recently and talked about how parents are really scrambling and really desperate need of these types of stopgap measures to help them, because so many kids are without childcare and without really basic things that they need right now. Food insecurity, childcare. The academics is part of it, but it's not the only thing that these kids really need help with. And the thing that I like about this potential tutoring program is that it's going to be in a building on Allen Boulevard in the strip mall. It's the old Verizon store, and so it's adjacent to a lot of apartments down there that heavily serve the Sauk Trail Elementary School. And in that school, there's lots of kids who are food insecure and on reduced school lunches, and it would really capture a large swath of kids who might be able to really benefit from mentoring and having 1 or 2 hours per day to be able to get help with their schoolwork and interact with high school students. The high school students are incredibly organized, and they've come up with COVID safety protocols and a business plan and expense sheets, and they've answered questions really well. The last thing I will say is that at a city equity meeting, it wasn't a city-sponsored equity meeting, but a community-wide equity meeting, Percy Brown attended. This was a few nights ago, and Percy Brown listened to the whole meeting, and at the end he said, "I have an observation." And he said, "I hear a lot of people talking about education and talking about policy." He said, "I'm really not hearing the messy conversations of reallocating money to Black communities and communities that need it the most. It's a bigger ask, and it's the really messy stuff. And he said, until that happens, and it has never happened before, but until that happens, it's hard to make progress, real true progress. So he was directly asking the city to reallocate some of the money it has and fund and directly work with people in the community who are already working in that space and help them. So I think I mean, to me, I feel like we could justify it around sustainability from an equity standpoint and a community well-being standpoint. And I'd be very willing to do some volunteer there, you know, to talk to the kids maybe about recycling or something like that, to give it some sustainability, you know, items to discuss. But anyway, so I put that in there because I think that these students could use a little bit of our money. They currently, the last I checked a few days ago, had $3,900, and they're able to do month-to-month rent, which is $1,500. And they're working on fundraising now as well. And so people are starting to donate from the community. So that's why that's a line item here. Does anyone have any questions or discussion on that item?
You know, listening to their business plan, it didn't sound sustainable to me. It's too expensive, and they don't have a regular source of income coming in to support it. So $3,900 would get them maybe 2 months, you know, and then what? So that's unless they can come up with a sustainable plan. You know, I hate to, I mean, our money would give them, you know, if it's $1,500, it would give them maybe 1 month of rent, but then what? You know.
Yeah,
right.
the way
I have to say, I agree with Deb that, I mean, this is a very worthy proposal. I mean, I think what they're doing is phenomenal. And I said this last time, I certainly was not thinking about things like this when I was their age, but there are a lot of other worthy activities that could use funding. I know the Middleton Cross Plains Area School District Education Fund, you know, has money available to purchase food for families who need it. Same thing with Middleton Outreach Ministry. And one could make the equity argument there too. And I think it's great if the city wants to support this. You know, that's the mayor's and the common council's decision to make. And I would prefer, again, given our charge as a committee and given the need to think about things like, you know, why would we fund this proposal as opposed to asking other entities out there in the community to share their ideas for similar activities that we really could interpret as a sustainability or equity related activity that would benefit people who need it. I know there are other ideas out there, and I feel like we as a committee would not be doing our due diligence in awarding funding to the students. And I feel terrible saying it because I really do support what they're doing, and I'll probably figure out a way to you know, donate to them privately. But I think that I personally would feel more at ease as a committee member and the chair if we did not fund this activity and let that funding lapse back to the city. And if the city wants to put that money towards the tutoring project, that's, you know, like I said, that's our elected officials' call.
Okay, I think, and
I saw Dick raising his hand.
Yeah. I really like the long-term goal of this as an equity issue of helping underprivileged kids get more opportunities to learn and after school kind of things. But I see this as a knee-jerk reaction to COVID, and it surprises me if I heard what you said, Kelly, right, that the school district does not want to sponsor this. The Sauk Trail School, if there's not kids in the classroom on the short term, they have the space there to do the same thing that this commercial space does without charging $1,500. I think it's a liability issue. And quite frankly, bringing young kids together in a raging COVID problem for the next couple of months until, 2-3 months or 4, whatever it is, until we get enough of the population that's vulnerable vaccinated, it doesn't feel like that's something that our committee should sponsor. I like the idea, the equity issue that was brought up by the person in the city is well taken. I just feel like that our committee, to throw $1,500 for a 1-month rental of a commercial space that could be found, the space could be found within a school building if the school district really felt this was important. But I think the school district wants to avoid liability. They say, yeah, let the community take it on. And I have trouble supporting this as it is.
Okay. Let's proceed through the list and we'll pare it down as we continue, or once we get to the end. Kelly, you've got the Sustain Dane conference registrations on there, and I see you've got 10. I don't need one because I already paid for mine out of pocket. So if you want to whittle that down.
Okay, yeah, the Sustain Dane registrations, the conference where Daphne's being honored this year, are $62 each. Well, are $60 each of the $219 fee attached. And so I put 10 in there just as the max. I don't think 10 people would go, but the most that would be if everyone was paid for is $621. And if people are comfortable with paying for some members who want to go, then we can do, you can contact me if you'd like to, and I can go ahead and use the operating budget for that purpose if you approve that. So that's that line item. The next one is a USDN membership. That stands for Urban Sustainability Directors Network. And I have been in contact with them. It doesn't say on their website how much a yearly membership is. You have to fill out some forms. So I filled out the forms, but now I'm waiting to hear back from the person who would contact me. It's a membership organization that Madison is a part of, and Racine, and a few other cities in Wisconsin. And I'm familiar with them because I do a lot of collaboration around climate change and resilience and equity. And it's great for networking. They often run a lot of the sessions at Greenbuild and other major sustainability conferences. They have grants that are available if you are a member of their organization. And they're full of leaders, sustainability leaders. And I have talked to Stacy Reese about it and Kara Pratt from Racine. And because I hear mostly about this group more than any other collaborative group, they're always talking about, oh, this is something that came out of USDN. And it just seems like a space to be in as a city in order to access grants. I know Racine received some really large grants for resiliency hubs to create those in their city, and that came through this network. So that's not something that I, will be crushed if you don't want to fund. It's just something that if we have a lot of money, I think it would be worthwhile to try it for a year. And if it's not worth it after a year, not do it again. And if we get some grants out of it, great. And we can try it out only because we have extra money. I don't think I'd be pitching it if we were down to bare bones and it was that or some kind of, more major item. But I am interested in being a part of that and learning more about it. The last items are just some smaller items, composting bins for some of the municipal buildings. And we'll have enough money. If you take off the NCAT allocation, then we would definitely have some money for some of these smaller items to purchase. It would just be a matter of talking to the building owner, not the building owners, but the people, the facilities managers in those buildings to see if they're interested, and you know, deciding how I would help facilitate getting those to them and training them to use the composting bins for basically for staff food scraps. I didn't put anything about the senior center in there because they have very limited space, and I think if we did food composting there, it would be more of a service contract with a company like Curbside Composter, which is a separate discussion, I think. The same thing about rain barrels. There's only a couple buildings that might work for, but I also think having some of those things visible in our downtown and to be able to be highlighted by when we give talks, or if the, you know, so people just see them when they're walking around downtown. So there would also be remaining balance. Even if we maxed out on all those items, there would still be a remaining balance of around 2,000. I want to keep some in the budget for last minute Middleton Recycling Center emergencies or supplies. Sometimes they need things pretty quickly. They're usually not expensive things, but you never know. So does anyone have any you know, ideas about things they'd like to keep, or, you know, any guidance will help me. Any approvals will help me.
Well, I would suggest that we go with 2,000 for Seed the Need and strike the tutoring. I think the USDN membership is fine. It sounds like, especially, you know, if you hear it cited all the time, I think it's worth trying it out for a year and seeing what we get for our money. I wonder, are there any other memberships that are still due? Like, we're members of Sustain Dane, if we already paid the fee for the year, or does that come out of a different budget? I love the composting bins. Too bad we can't fit one at the recycling center. Too bad we can't put them in schools, at least in the staff lounge or something. But someday, you know, we might get there. And the Sustain Dane conference, I think, is a great idea. I'm super excited about the Project Drawdown speaker who's giving the keynote. Any other comments from members? Daphne? And then Dick?
I don't know if this would be useful, but I do have 2 free tickets for the conference, and instead of taking it out of the budget, I don't know if you guys would just want to take those and take advantage of those.
That's very generous of you, Daphne, but I was going to suggest, what about other high school, you know, members of the green team at the high school? I think it would be great to attract more young people to conferences like that. It's worth taking a little time out of the synchronous learning day. So I think that's really nice of you, but I really encourage you to recruit some friends or colleagues to go and use those tickets.
Okay, I'll do that.
You do have some that would be likely candidates, don't you? I hope.
Yeah.
Maybe Elena.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, I want to make a motion. I'd like to see the Seed the Need get $3,000, and we're going to have to vote on whether we're going to do the tutoring or not. If we don't do the tutoring, that frees up some money, and still leaving $1,900 on the table. Plus, you've already indicated the Sustain Dane conference registration probably should be cut back. I think there's at least $2,000 left on the table. We're here in the middle of November. I'd like to see us even maybe make a motion for $4,000 for Seed the Need. We know we can spend it. We got it locked in. And so that's my motion. One thing before we deal with that motion, the rain barrel for the library. I have a rain barrel and I work at using that water for various things, but I'm wondering who's going to take the water out of the rain barrel. I would rather see us invest in rain gardens from the library downspouts and things, rather than just a rain barrel. Now, if the library needs to go out and get water and water some plants in the building, that's fine. but just putting rain barrels in, if you don't use them, they fill up quickly, very quickly, and then nothing happens. So I'm just raising that issue about just putting a rain barrel in makes us think that we're doing a great job. But if you don't use the water, then it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I was hoping that I could talk to Dee about that. She's the person who she's a landscape architect by training, but she does the downtown landscaping, and she works a lot with the library landscaping, and she has ideas about how to beautify more of the downtown. Most of the plantings are native, so they're not huge water users, but she's a paid staff member who would be there to use the water from the rain barrel for the landscape that's right there. And I thought it could be sort of a demonstration, but if I talk to her and she says, no, it's a total headache, we don't even need to water those plants, then it's true, it's not something worth pursuing.
Yeah, because you really need just water, water containers to take the water out of the rain barrel and take it somewhere and use it. So if you're not, I would rather see us talk about taking our rooftops and taking that water into rain gardens or things to, increase infiltration with less runoff. But I'm not opposed to the rain barrel, I'm just questioning it. Yeah. So back to my motion, I would like to see us actually, I'm making a motion that we increase the seed to need to $4,000 and not fund the tutoring act because of issues. Maybe we could take those as two separate motions, but I think maybe we need to deal with the tutoring act first to decide if we're not going to fund it, then that would free up a certain amount of money. And then I suggest then maybe we take up a seed the need motion. But I don't want to see us leaving $2,000 in our budget on the table and not have any idea how to spend it. We only got really a month to make a decision.
Yep. Well, in terms of procedural matters, I don't think we need a motion at this point because we don't really have any. This isn't an actual proposal. This is just Kelly's wish list, I guess. So I think we're fine if we make modifications as long as no one on the committee objects. I think we could start by striking the tutoring proposal unless someone has a strong objection and wants to speak to it. Hearing no objections, so Kelly, if we strike that, Dick is proposing that we increase the seed the need to $3,000 or $4,000, did you say?
Well, I guess I started with 3, but now I'm thinking 4 because I don't want to see us leave 2,000 on the table. So I'm taking basically 1,500 from the NCAT, the tutoring, adding it to the 100 to 3, and I'm taking 1,000 off the remaining. So that's how I'm getting to 4.
Got it. Okay, so any objection? Kermit, I see your hand just a second. Oh. Any objection to increasing the seed the need to $4,000? No objection.
It depends.
Kermit's got his hand.
Yeah. Well, thinking about equity and sustainability, and an idea flitted across the chat about light bulb, LED bulb availability. And it's like, we don't have time to set up a program to do something like that, but we could partner with Mom, for instance, and get a cartload or forklift truckload of LED bulbs for them to distribute to their client base. I don't know whether that's something that's especially needed, whether we'd be giving Mom a problem or whether we'd be giving Mom another resource to give out to their clients. But that's, and how much that would take, I don't know what the reasonable dollar amount would be.
So I was at Menards a week ago and I bought a pack of 10 equivalent of 60-watt LED light bulbs, and it was less than $9 for 10 of them.
Right. And
they really come down in price.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the prices come down, and that makes it a high return investment for us as far as getting those into the hands of people who can't afford $9. or say, well, why do I want
Yeah.
to bother $9? It's not my electric bill, or it is my electric bill, but I'm not going to be here. So if we drop the threshold of pain or cost low enough, it might get some traction. That's just a thought.
No, I think that's a great idea, Kermit. It looks like Angie thinks so too. And I am a volunteer at Mom, and I can find out what, because one thing that occurs to me is they might not want to deal with something that's breakable in any way, you know. But I do know, I mean, they're giving away food 3 times a week. They have the food pantry open for distribution of boxes and what food they have available there. And then there's also the Winter Wishes coming up, which used to be called Sharing Christmas. And so that might be something. They're just giving out gift cards this year, but there may be a way to give out gift cards and some LED bulbs, or, you know, or Christmas lights or whatever. So I will take an action item to check with Shannon at Mom and see. I actually have a call with her tomorrow and see if that is something that would interest them, and if so, how many units they would want, and what specifically, you know, any restrictions might be. So I can report back Thursday.
My comment on that is I'd like to see us giving them money towards something that may be sustainable for people. I understand the light bulbs are, but I also know Focus on Energy gives out 6 free ones every 3 years. So, you know, if we educate people on what's available to them, in addition to potentially maybe giving some money to Mom for some something defined as sustainable, whether that's helping them bring in some more fruits and vegetables or something on that order. I don't know how easy any of that is, but to buy bulbs and take them to Mom is, I don't know who's responsible for that, and I doubt Kelly has time to do that.
Right.
Okay, I'll have a conversation with Mom folks either tomorrow or Thursday and ask them what they would suggest for you know, the easiest, most seamless way to help out their clients with energy efficiency measures. The rain barrel, I think Dick makes a good point. Obviously, it's too late this year to encourage the library to develop a rain garden. I wish we had thought of that sooner before the ground started to freeze. I love the composting bins. I've thought about when Mom opens up again with their pantry, you know, having a compost bin at their facility would be good. But I don't think it's going to happen now. So Kelly, are you able to make edits directly to this page that we're viewing so that we can wrap up by 8:40?
I can. I'm taking notes in a separate document on a different.
Oh, okay.
Computer. So I have it.
Okay, but I need to see something, because in my late night reading of Robert's Rules of Order, I want to make sure that we word a resolution. I want to make sure that we word the resolution appropriately. So, exceed the needed 4,000 up to, or approximately, right, let's say up to $1,000 for the USDN membership. You don't think it'll go above that?
I don't think so. I'm not worried about that.
Okay.
If it
up to $600 for sustained Dane conference registrations.
I guess I question who's going to that. When is it? I mean, I probably should be interested in it. I just don't know when it is and who all is going to the committee.
3rd. It's the 3rd of December in the morning.
3rd of December.
I think it runs close to it's all day, isn't it? I mean, they have sessions.
I don't think it is. I think it only goes until like 1. I know I have a staff meeting at 1:30, and I think it's over by then.
Oh.
Let me see if I have that.
Is it just committee members that we're talking about going to this, or are we talking about the whole city, or what?
Oh, well, I'm sorry, the Live Forward Awards are at 3 o'clock. Yes, so we got
it does run until
yeah,
it runs until 4. I had schedule information.
Okay, got it.
And how many people are we trying to support from our committee or the broader city government?
It was only for our committee.
Yeah, it's just our committee.
Could we, I like Dick's thoughts there though, that we want to encourage sustainability thinking across City Hall. So if we can encourage people to go, I don't know, I mean, would that be a problem in terms of budget guidelines?
Well, if we're supporting 10 positions and Lisa's already said she's paid for her own, we pay for those of us that want to go, and any leftover, we've already committed for 10. Let's find other people in the city,
yeah,
Kelly, that you can figure that might benefit from it.
Okay.
You know, somebody from Public Works, maybe, you know, somebody from Planning Commission, you know.
Well, and Kermit, you mentioning Public Works made me think, I had pulled up the notes from our, the special committee meeting that Kelly mentioned that we had in August, and two things we had on there. One was an electric mower for public lands to trial, and then another one was water softener upgrades for city buildings. Any thought to those things, Kelly? It's not feasible now?
Well, Abby and I met with the PSC because they controlled our water conservation program, the guidelines, and water softener rebates weren't part of that. This is for residents now. I'm not talking about city buildings. And they said that they would probably accept that, but because it's the PSC, there's a really long process. So we have to fill out all kinds of forms. It has to be voted on. So that won't happen until next year, but hopefully we'll be able, there's already a pot of money there that people will be able to use next year for water softener rebates and upgrades. As far as the city's water softeners, I think that would be something that would take longer than the next 3 weeks to figure out which ones and do it and everything.
And probably same with the mower.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to training for the mechanic on electric vehicles?
He's doing some of the training. It's all online now, so it's free for the most part. Oh. And so he's sent me a few things that he's taking part in, and I need to have more conversations with him about it. There's no like training program that you can identify that costs a certain amount of money that we could get him into right now.
Okay. All right.
On the water softener question for city buildings, Allison mentioned optimization. So rather than you'd be hiring somebody to provide a service, would that be a possibly viable option?
For the city?
For the city, yeah.
Well, there's grants available to the city through MMSD that I'd maybe pursue first.
Okay.
For some of that. Because she and I have talked about that back and forth on email several times.
Okay.
There's a bazillion
like 100% grants.
What?
100% grants. Like, I mean, it would.
I'm not sure. I haven't read through all their grants. I went to a training, so now I'm SaltWise certified, and that opens up our ability to apply for grants. But I don't know what those grants are yet. But she knows.
Did it cost anything for you to get certified?
I don't think it did. I think it was free. Okay. And other people in our city have done it as well.
Okay, that's what I was just going to suggest. Okay, well, it sounds like it's a great idea, but I just don't see how it's going to happen in the very short term, which is what we're up against. So if you throw in the composting bins, and that's $140, and hold off on the rain barrel, put that money, or not that money, but next year shoot for.
I'm not suggesting we hold off on it. I just think it would be important to find out if the library can actually use the water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if they can, let's go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so put that one on there too, then, Kelly.
But then Kelly would find out by talking to the outdoor landscaper person.
Does the recycling center, could they use a rain barrel?
I don't think they would have anything to water with it. It's a massive roof, but
Give them one more thing to do too, trying to do something with all.
That's an interesting question. How many city buildings could use rain gardens that we want to plan for? And not to use the money this December, but maybe we should be thinking about our own facilities, about how do we deal with the rooftop water.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think of rain barrels, you know, much more than just giving me water that I can use. I think of it more as preventing water from going out into the street.
Yeah, this conversation really isn't, I mean, there's big things I'd like to do, but this is just an operating budget, so it's small stuff.
Okay, so that adds up. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add one thing. Andy had brought up the community gardens a little while ago, and I'm wondering if it might be worthwhile to check in with the committees to find out if they have, you know, some smaller items that they're struggling to take care of. They do have the garden shed at Bach. They've got the fence. I don't know if they have sort of any other larger issues with some of the items that we invested in about 8 or 10 years ago. So, and I don't know who the committee garden leaders are anymore. But you know, there might be something like $100 or $200 here or there that could make a big difference for them. And there are a lot of families that use the community gardens and the plots to feed themselves. So I think that could be a small investment that could go a long way for, you know, for some people.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea. It could be at the end of this, if you made a motion to accept this, and then the remaining balance would go to the community gardens, you know, something like that, if they need it.
Well, the remaining balance might be kind of big, but I think if we earmark, say, $200 or $300 for the community gardens, and same thing with the recycling center, you said there are always some last minute expenses that they might have, and then maybe we dedicate the rest of it to Middleton Outreach Ministry if they can use it.
Oh, for the light bulbs, you're saying?
Yeah.
Or as Chris was suggesting, some alternative sustainability, energy efficiency. Yeah. So not just light bulbs, but
some other, yeah, okay. Because I was thinking, you know, light bulbs, it's going to provide, you know, more money in their energy budget to do something else.
Right.
So, and it's more sustainable than a meal. I mean, a meal, you eat it and it's gone. I mean, if we could think of some sustainable items that they could use long-term, you know, that would make sense.
Yep. So Kelly, what do we have so far? That's 1,200, 22, 62, 68, 21, and 140. I should have written this down.
I'm doing it.
It's like 67.
The thing about the light bulb thing is that people go there, say, could you, you know, have an opportunity to get 2 LED lights, and they just get it. Whereas if you have to go through focus on energy and all that process, a lot of low-income people don't have computers, they don't know how to do this. So I think being able to distribute to those people that are insecure a couple of light bulbs would be an easy thing. And they, obviously they don't cost a lot, as you've already indicated. I just think handing them out to those that want a few of them would be a good thing, rather than saying, well, Focus on Energy provides them, but how many people know how to get that stuff out of Focus on Energy?
Right, and I think it also gives us an opportunity, in addition to distributing the goods themselves, if mom can purchase them and do that, but we would want to get some information attached to those in English and Spanish to make it possible for people to maybe learn about the Focus on Energy project, and you know, why we're giving these out in the first place, how it can help them, and where they can get future resources.
I mean, Lisa, if you could find out by next meeting, you know, whether this is something that mom would really want to take on. And then we could be buying light bulbs within the last week of our budget year and use up all our money rather than have some of it just dribble out. So
yeah, that's a great idea.
You could figure out how much money you've already got on your adjusted spreadsheet, how much money is uncommitted. And at our next meeting, there might be a couple $1,000 or 1,500 or whatever the number is. And then we could figure out, okay, you found out that the light bulb thing would be a good way to spend it, or somebody else has a recommendation for the community gardens or some specific numbers, and we could just have a 10-minute agenda item that would just decide, okay, how are we going to burn out the last?
Yeah, there's about $1,200 or $1,300 left before the mom. You know, I didn't include any money for mom right now, just that.
Okay, so this is our proposal then to, well, it's not yet, but just to recap. So all the agenda items you see there, Kelly, that sums up to what, $6,661.19, if I did it right?
Yep.
Okay. Can you put that in there?
Yeah.
And we
Now,
have.
I'm sorry, I would raise the question of, would we want to reallocate a little bit from Seed the Need to the mom project, contingent on it making sense with them?
Kelly, can you scroll up to see the, I just want to see what we had left. Okay, so we have
this much.
okay,
It's 79.77. You know, that doesn't include shipping for an order. So let's say $7,900 is what we currently have.
Okay.
So that leaves us still at least $1,300, right?
Yeah. Yes.
That seems like a good load of light bulbs.
Well,
or
what do you
things.
think about Kermit's suggestion of dropping the Seed the Need to 3,000? Because the Seed the Need, we could also do at the end of the year. Like if mom comes back and says, yes, we love the idea, but we need, you know, more than whatever this balance is, then we would have that available. And if they don't, then we could put an extra, I mean, Kelly doesn't have to pay right away, right? You can pay at the end of the year.
Yeah,
Okay.
as long as I can do it before December 31st and actually exchange the money.
So should we are we agreed to drop that to 3,000 for now, recognizing that it's a great contribution for the project, but it also leaves a little additional money for people in our community?
Yes.
How do you feel about it, Deb?
Whatever the committee wants to do. I mean, Seed the Need is for all the people in our community. It's just, I mean, it's going to be a huge benefit. I mean, we had the flooding of the corridor impacted the whole community. I mean, it just did. And so, but I don't know how many light bulbs you want. You know, they were less than $1 a piece. You know, $1,000 would give you 1,000 or less or more light bulbs. You know, so do you want 2,000, 3,000? How many light bulbs are you talking about?
I don't know. That's what I'm going to find out from the folks at Middleton Outreach.
And we're also leaving open the alternative sustainability measures, which mom might have some ideas about, you know, things that help with energy efficiency or utilities.
Yeah.
Well, I'd support cutting the Seed the Need back to 3, but I would like us to revisit these final numbers then at the last meeting to make some decision based on what Lisa learns from mom's reaction to a light bulb distribution program. If we give them an extra 1,000 instead of 1,000, we give them $2,000 worth of light bulbs. Are they really gonna do something with it? Do they want it? Yeah. And if not, then I would say that the next meeting, then let's bump the Seed the Need back up. Let's make sure we burn out the money for useful things.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll have to go ahead and expend the 621 or the sustained Dane. So I need a motion to approve that at least.
Well, I think we can, why don't I make a motion to accept and I'll reword it when we get there. But I'm going to make a motion to accept what we've got in this lines, 31 through 38 right now. And we'll finalize it. We'll have the final numbers for the USDN. I mean, that's why we had put in there, right? It said up to $1,000 for that. But we'll finalize these numbers for anything that hasn't been spent when we come back. So here's the motion. I move that for the remainder of the 2020 operating budget, we approve $3,000 for Seed the Need, up to $1,000 for the USDN, up to $621.19 to pay for 10 people to attend the Sustain Dane conference on December 3rd, up to $140 for the composting bins, up to $300 for a rain barrel, up to $300 for community gardens, up to $300 for the recycling center. And that's it for now.
It seems to me if all of that's going to change except the Sustain Dane conference, then we should only be voting on the Sustain Dane conference, because that's the only amount we know for sure we're going to appropriate, because it could all change next month. So why are we, I don't understand.
Okay, so not hearing a second for my motion, I'm going to move that we authorize Kelly to purchase 10 tickets to Sustain Dane for $621.19. Second?
Second. I'll second it. Can I say as needed? Because maybe she doesn't have 10 people that want to go, but we have the money for 10 people.
Yeah, with the idea that once we query our own committee and how many want to use this, that then we offer it to other strategic members of the city government that might benefit from it.
Yes.
Okay, Kelly, can you read the motion back?
And Ira moves that we authorize up to 10 tickets to the Sustain Dane conference not to exceed $621.19. Deb seconds.
All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? All right, so we will come back next time. But Kelly, that's the only one you're going to be able to expend, correct?
Yes.
Because that's the only one we've approved. So will you be able to come up with like exact amounts for the rain barrel and yeah, okay. And I'll check with Middleton Outreach and you'll find out about that membership fee.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll be able to, at the next meeting, which will be December 21st, we will finalize all the expenditures. And you're going to be a busy lady during the holidays.
Can she get all that taken care of by the end?
Are we putting Kelly behind the 8 ball, saying wait until the 21st?
Well, of course we are, but that's nothing new, is it? Well, how about if Kelly, do you need us to schedule a special meeting of quorum in 2 weeks? Would that help you?
Let me see. I mean, it might just be, like 5 phone calls. And you're gonna have the discussion with Mom, right, Lisa?
Yep.
That's kind of the big one. And the community gardens is another one that I'll need to have a conversation with somebody, but that's really the recycling center is just, I want to leave a few $100s to the end because sometimes they just need it. And I can't say what it would be. I can't find that out.
Well, well, I'll tell you in 2 weeks. I mean, if you feel like you need to, because what we're thinking about is you need time once you get the final budget from us, you need time to spend it. And if we don't finalize it until the 21st of December, that's not giving you a whole lot of time.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
this might bleed into the next conversation, but we probably should talk about whether we want to have that meeting on the 21st if people are traveling, or whether we need to reschedule next month's meeting to a week
Yep.
earlier, that kind of thing.
That does blend in, and I'm going to suggest that we postpone or put the discussion of ground rules and committee structure, put that on the agenda under unfinished business, maybe unstarted business.
I have an item that I need to discuss tonight that falls under that agenda, if it's okay with the committee.
Well, let's decide first on the path forward for this budget. So I will talk to Middleton Outreach. You'll get the other information. We'll share what we know appropriately with the committee without replying to all on anything. And if it looks like you're going to need us to convene a special meeting, reach out to us as soon as possible so that we can get a quorum together to help you out. The next meeting is scheduled for December 21st. Does that present a conflict for anybody who's on the line right now?
Well, I'd like to see us move it up a week like you were suggesting. 21st is getting kind of close to Christmas. And I would wonder if we have a suggested budget here and you're going to find out something about moms, why can we do this by an email where you would send out the suggested budget, any updates that Kelly has, and in a week or two, maybe the end of November or very early December, and have us just vote on spending this stuff so that we don't get way back to the very end of December and then not get it resolved.
I can't do it because of open meetings laws.
Yeah.
We would have to we could even have a very quick quorum, the first of the second week of December, and it could be, this is the information, okay, go for it. But I would have
gavel in and gavel out.
How about the first week of December, just have a quick meeting to vote on just this particular budget stuff.
Okay, well, we have two things going on here. One is bumping up our committee meeting that normally would take place on the 21st, bumping it up to the 14th of December at the same time that we normally do. Is that a problem for anybody?
And so the 21st is a problem for people, or is it just a possible problem?
Well, it's late if we have to make decisions on anything. It's just right into the holidays. So why push it back so late when?
I hear you. Okay, I appreciate that framing of the issue.
Okay, so Dick, do you want to make a motion to move our regularly scheduled committee meeting to the 14th?
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Next motion was, again, Dick, you're proposing that Kelly schedule a budget meeting, gavel in, gavel out kind of budget meeting that our legislature is known for, and do that.
Don't compare us to them.
The first week of December.
Would it be possible to combine those on the 14th? Is that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
I mean, there were so many meetings.
If that works for you, Kelly, that's,
you can handle it all on the 14th and still get the money spent. That's fine.
Yeah, we're just trying to keep burning you out. We like you around.
Okay. And then agenda items that Kelly and I will talk about putting on the agenda for December 14th will include the ground rules, which Kelly still has something she needs to bring up. The MG&E solar shares, and the other item, well, a work plan. I know, Dick, you want to talk about the larger, have a larger discussion of the energy and greenhouse gas emissions topics that came up today. But for the end of the year planning, I think we should talk about a work plan. What are some of the things we want to be talking about in 2021, and what might our agendas look like?
Okay, well, I'm fine with taking off the agenda the bigger topic of energy, but I would like to see us look at the shared solar because that's a hot, low-hanging fruit right now.
Okay. And then, of course, the budget discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd like to also suggest that we schedule our meetings for 2 hours. I would say
no. Some of us are on 8 committees,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah,
And some of us have
really,
meetings after this.
well, we're already a 2.5-hour meeting.
I
Right.
know.
And-
This is
and
ridiculous.
right. And that's why I would have loved to wrap this one up after an hour and a half, but obviously I did not follow through on my commitment to keep us to that time frame. So my apologies, but we will be discussing ground rules next time. And I think, you know, again, I consulted the committee, the volunteer and appointed committee handbook, whatever it's called. And it seems like an hour and a half is a reasonable amount of time, and what we should strive for on most months. Obviously there are going to be times when we might have to run over, and if we do run over, I would like that to be deliberate and intentional and known up front instead of accidental. So that's just my preference. Kelly, what's the open meeting thing you wanted to bring up?
It was brought to my attention that we may be in violation of open meetings by us formally establishing subcommittees that consist solely of committee members, even if it's not a quorum. Those meetings will in the future need to be agenda packet made and posted a business day before the meeting, just like our committee meetings would be. The difference is that if there's members of the public that serve on the subcommittees, then it ceases to be a formal subcommittee that was constituted by the whole committee. So what happened tonight was fine, that subgroup existed with community members. But when we can't have subcommittees meeting without them being subject to the same open meetings laws that these meetings are. I was not given that guidance by the city administrator, Mike Davis, and I think all the committees have been functioning under, as long as you don't have a quorum and you have subcommittees that are just a few people, it's fine. So this is a new re-evaluation of the law, and so I wanted to update you on that, because if people do meet in these subcommittees, they are subject to fines, and it's not something that the city would be liable for. It would be up to the individual committee member to pay the fine. So I needed to alert you to that now. And then the last thing I'll say is that Mike Davis is, I think, planning to have an orientation, rehashing of the rules, kind of educational session via Zoom for all committee members and all alders to make sure that we all are on the same page about what we can do and what we can't, and also to talk about the inner workings of committees function and that kind of thing, which will be helpful for me too and for everyone. So I don't have a date for that yet, but he's mentioned wanting to do that. I don't know if it'll be in the new year, probably will be.
Yep.
But until then, I don't think we have any subcommittees planned, but just so you know, it does not apply to an example where if Deb calls Dick and says, let's get together, socially distance, and talk about biodiversity. That's not, you would not be necessary for you to then have an open meetings thing. But if our committee said we want Deb and Dick to meet and talk about biodiversity as a subcommittee, then you would be subject to open meetings rules.
Okay, that's good information to have. I think everybody will benefit from this orientation for committee members. It's a little surprising it hasn't been a routine thing, given the importance of the committees to the workings of the city government. And if you, Kelly, can you share whatever the citation is for this subcommittee restriction? Because that's important information to have.
Yep, I'll send that out to you.
And thank you for sharing that. Okay,
yep.
Anybody have other business for the good of the committee?
Is there an approval? The agenda item indicates an approval vote needed. Does that apply to the item that Kelly just shared, or is that something else?
That applies to the, if you see at the end, I think, of the packet, pages 26 and 7, we were going to discuss committee ground rules, ideas for committee ground rules, now that, you know, I'm more comfortable with the group and feel
Right.
like I've been chair long enough that it's okay to broach the subject of how we should operate as a committee. But we'll pick that up next time. And yes, I do think we will want to have a formal vote to adopt our ground rules.
Okay, but the update on the subcommittee guidance is not one of those items.
That is not for a vote.
Okay,
and it pertains to the proposed ground rules. So that's one of the reasons it's on there. So, all right, well, not hearing any new business for the committee. Anyone want to make a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Anyone second?
Second.
Everybody seconds?
Everybody
seconded.
Third, fourth, fifth.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed? All right. Good night, everyone. We'll see you on the 14th, and I'll be in touch before then with information on Middleton outreach and what I find out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.